Our next award is the Legacy Award that recognizes individuals choosing Fairfield to grow their business and who created a lasting impact on the community over the last 20 years. It's sponsored by Aeron Lifestyle Technology, and Monica Hadley and Tim Worley are here to present this. Andy Warhol said, "It's not about living forever, but about creating something that will." Our recipient is the Kessels Conoco, Steve Kessel, and the whole Kessel family. Now, I understood that we'd probably have to put extra support under the stage because they were all coming. Would the Kessel family please stand? All of you? Look at that. Yes. Okay, the Conoco Station and Auto Repair on the corner of Burlington and 4th has been there since the 1920s, making it a Fairfield heritage business. When George Kessel came to town, home from World War II, 79 years ago, he and his father Clarence bought it on July 1st, 1946. Clarence had run gas stations like DX before, and George had specialized in automotive work in the military, working on big trucks. Things were simpler in those days. There were fewer cars, people walked everywhere, and George did more overhauls and engines, even though he didn't really like cars. Windows were cranked, there was no AC, and the pumps were full-service islands. Does anyone here know what that means? Okay, we have some people who are at least as old as I am. That meant you pulled in, someone ran out, they pumped your gas, they checked your oil, they checked your tire pressure, they washed all your windows and your windshields, and if you needed anything else done, they took care of it. Their phone number was 285J. Now, that was big because in Libertyville, you had two numbers, like 46 or something like that with us. And they all went to Central with the lady with the connectors to connect you to whoever you wanted. So in the 50s, Conoco raised the old building and built a new one that faced Burlington and 4th Street. In the late 60s, they added a third bay, which was a wash bay, and the boys, who all worked there, washed cars inside and out for $2, and they would do up to 20 cars on a Saturday. George and Wanda had 9 children. Clarence and Marie Drish Kessel lived with George and Wanda until Karen was born, and she's here tonight. After that, Pat promptly had to open the door at 6 in the morning so that Grandma Marie could come in to help with the babies. George was an only child. All George's sons worked at the station. Patrick, Michael, Steve, Robert, and Bill, and Karen did a little, and Jane did a little. Even Uncle Donnie Samuelson, who's here tonight with us, worked there. In the 60s, to set themselves apart, they offered 4 levels of gas. The cheapest was Conotane, then regular, then superior, and finally premium. Oh my, how things have changed. In the mid-60s, they were the first station in Iowa to convert those leaky metal tanks underground to fiberglass. The boys and George had to scoop snow. You did it by hand in those days. And they scooped it into a pile in the corner, and it seems that there was a man who got off work every day someplace north and came down, and in order to avoid the stop sign on Burlington and 4th, would fly through the gas station. And if there was a snow pile there, he delighted in hitting it and throwing the snow back so it had to be scooped again. And he did this repeatedly. One time there was and every time he did it, he thumbed his nose at George as he flew through. One time there was a really big snow, and George went out and he scooped snow in a pile Then with the hose, he watered it down. And then he scooped more snow, and then he watered it down, and finally he scooped more snow and watered it down. It was a cold day. And so, when the guy came flying down 4th Street, flew through, hit the snow pile, what do you think happened? Lost the front end of his car, and George thumbed his nose at him. Oh my gosh, I thought that was the best story ever. George kept a cash register. Does anybody remember those coin dispensers that gas station guys wore on their belts? I always coveted one of those of my own, but I'd have to have had money to put in it, where they clicked out the change. He never allowed that, and every day he went out and he checked the gas pumps to see how much gas had been sold, and then he compared it to the register. And he called it his bookkeeping, not his accounting. And Pat tells that he literally learned a lot of skills from his dad that he's carried with him through life, and probably true for the other boys as well. However, Pat noticed that there were people who had accounts there, because what was a credit card? Had anyone heard of a credit card then? Nope. There were a lot of people who owed money, so he thought maybe he should just go door to door and ask them to pay the money. And Pat quickly determined that, like being an outhouse sanitarian, he did not want to be a bill collector because people weren't happy to see him coming. Then there were the gas wars. You probably don't know about those. The cut rate stations were on the west side of town. And at one time, there were 24 gas stations in this town, believe it or not. And they would lower their prices, and then everybody in town had to try to keep up. Now, for George, he had to call Ponca City, Oklahoma, and get permission to lower the gas price. And he would get that permission, and the lowest the guys could remember was 19.9 cents a gallon. Anybody like to see that happen again? In 71, they celebrated their 25th anniversary, and everybody who bought 10 gallons of gas got 1 pound of bacon that George bought at the Handy Pantry. Anybody remember the Handy Pantry? Little neighborhood grocery stores all over Fairfield. He bought a pound of bacon for 39 cents a pound, and that's what they gave. And then in 96, to celebrate their 50th anniversary, the radio station was 96.9, so they advertised gas on the radio for 96.9, and people were lined up clear to downtown to get the good gas prices. Pat went on to Conoco school, taking Susie and their 4-month-old daughter, but it never materialized for him to go on. However, Steve went to college to study business and accounting and came back to work with Dad. 5 years later, in 1990, Steve bought the station, continuing that family legacy, and George stayed on working for him until his passing in 94. And now the 4th generation is helping work at that station. And fortunately, we have Kent Worley with us tonight, because I saw him, who has been a consistent 27-year employee trying to keep that Kessel family together, right? So they work on all sorts of things, right down to explaining to people what that button on the dash does. And Steve says his greatest challenge is dealing with the government. Does anybody know what that means out there, dealing with the government in your business? His most rewarding part is getting to talk with people and learn their expectation and helping them with their auto needs. Brother Mike summed it up with, you know, I really got to know my grandparents, my parents. A lot of kids don't today. I got to learn about working at Conoco. It was good. I learned a lot about values and work ethic and action. It was a good life. Oh, the stories this family could tell. Join me in congratulating them.
I could remember Jonine when she came up to the JC's in 1987. She had an Annie doll with her, and she taught us all
Oh, we
CPR.
sussy Annie. Of course.
And I can still remember waking Annie up.
He was the only one who woke her up, I'll tell you that right now. She was a dummy, there's no doubt about it.